Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. The first guest of the evening covers hockey for Sideline Sports Report, but today we are talking football. Steven Liberman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Madison. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. So the season starts in 8 days. The Thursday night game between the Bears and the Packers. I'm not going to be doing picks on the podcast until next week, but today we're going to be going over your division picks, your wildcard picks, Super Bowl MVP, and a little true-false game we're going to do at the end, like I explained to you in the direct message. I'll get to that more later. Let's start in the AFC East. I have a feeling that we are in agreement on this pick.
Well, yeah. I mean, what else? I mean, I think it's going to be the Patriots. I think obviously right now they're Josh Gordon being cleared, to resume football activities, or at least to cleared to play from the drug suspension. I think that's huge for the Patriots. So, what else? I think until Brady retires, it's the Patriots division to lose.
Oh, absolutely. This is the Patriots division to lose as long as Brady and Belichick are there. And Brady has not shown signs of decline. I'm with you there. I'm not going to spoil all my picks, but I'll spoil the easy ones, like the Patriots winning the AFC East. That's the lock in sports every single year, as I say on Twitter each and every year with the Patriots. You mentioned Josh Gordon being back. Julian Edelman they drafted N'Keal Harry out of Arizona State in the first round. He'll help them. They have a lot of running backs, Sony Michel and James White and James Devlin. Their defense isn't terrible either. I think that they'll win the AFC East yet again. Who do you like in the AFC North?
Well, this is kind of going to be a very close division. So I think it's going to be relative. It's kind of go back and forth between Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. But I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens. I just think that Lamar Jackson, he's going to ball this year. I think they're going to run the ball very well. Obviously the receiver crew is still unknown, but I think from what I hear, they can really catch the football. The defense is, even though they lost C.J. Mosley, I still think they can be relatively very good there. I think getting Earl Thomas there, obviously Mark Ingram, I think Baltimore by a tidbit is going to win that division. Because I'm just not really buying the hype with Cleveland. I think Freddie Kitchens is gonna cost them in certain areas. He is an inexperienced coach. I just like Baltimore by a tid.
Interesting. The Ravens, don't forget, won this division a year ago, so it makes sense to pick them. They are a team to me that might take a step back. I like Lamar Jackson as a running quarterback, but I don't know how his passing will do. He was really exposed in that playoff game a year ago, so I'm a little worried about the Baltimore Ravens. So that's an interesting call by you. Who do you like in the AFC South? I know we probably both like the Colts before this Andrew Luck injury, but do you still like the Colts or like somebody new? Or I'm sorry, the Andrew Luck retirement.
This division is another kind of tough one because I think there's a lot of holes for all four teams. Tennessee, I think, is going to take a step back. I think there's a little bit of some, I think their defense is pretty good, but offensively, I don't think they have an identity there, so I think they might take a step back. I mean, so this is another kind of tough division, but, I'm going to go with Jacksonville. I think just the defense is very vaunting. I think Doug Marrone is a great coach. I think, I still can't I thought he should have been hired by the Giants before they hired, I think, Ben McAdoo. So it's, I like Jacksonville. Nicky Foles, I think he'll do enough. I think Leonard Fournette, if they can utilize him correctly, I think that's something that's going to be very good for them. So I like Jacksonville just because of their defense.
The Jaguars do have a lot of good players on defense, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won that division now with Andrew Luck hurt, but that's to me the most wide open division in the league. I keep saying hurt. He retired. With Andrew Luck's retirement, that is the most wide open division in the league for sure. Who do you like out in the AFC West this year?
I'm rolling Ken. Well, again, I think this is another kind of tough call. But I like the Chargers. I think, and again, it's just because of the defense. I like the Chargers. I think I know that Patty Mahomes is going to play at an MVP level again. I think that's crucial, but I just don't. I don't like the defense still yet on Kansas City. I think they're still trying to find their identity, but I just like so much the Chargers. I know Derwin James is hurt on that defense, but I still think they can get it done, and that he's still going to be. I think he's going to come back late in the year, and I think he's going to be effective. So I like the Chargers out west.
The Chargers are a good football team, and so are the Kansas City Chiefs. I expect those two teams to be battling out all year. How about wild cards for the AFC?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs as the first wild card. And then I would say, I would say Cleveland with the second wild card.
Interesting. Not bad with those picks. I still am unsure who I'm going to take with all the divisions. The only one that's a certainty to me is, I said it early on in the show, New England in the AFC East is to me the only certainty that I could think of right now because of the parity. How about the NFC East?
Well, this is I think it's going to be down between obviously Dallas and Philly. Just because I'm going to give Philly the small edge here. Just because I think, the Ezekiel Elliott situation, and obviously, when he comes back, he's going to have to work his way back in. But I'm just going to give Philly the small edge there in that division.
Philly has a lot of talent, and so does Dallas. I think that's going to be a two-horse race all season long, too, just like out in the AFC West. The NFC North is a good division this year. Who do you like in that division?
I like Green Bay. I think, and I go back and forth between Green Bay and Minnesota. But I just think, Aaron Rodgers seems to be having a lot of fun with Matt LaFleur as the coach. They've vastly improved on defense over there. But again, I just think Aaron Rodgers with the fact that he's going to have a new coach, he's going to have a lot less. He seems like he's going to have a lot more freedom at the line of scrimmage as well. So I just think, I'm going to go with Green Bay.
Green Bay's an interesting call. That would not shock me at all. Don't forget about the Chicago Bears, who won the division a year ago, and the Minnesota Vikings are a popular pick in that division as well. How about the NFC South?
It's going to have to be I think it's going to be New Orleans. I think, I still think it's the Saints division. I think Michael Thomas is the best receiver in the NFL right now, in my opinion. So, the Drew Brees chemistry with them is going to be crucial. Obviously they're still an interesting team on defense. Always, they're always hit and miss there. But I still think because of the offense, I think New Orleans gets it done there.
I agree with you about the Saints. I think that's an easy call. Although I think that Atlanta and Carolina can potentially surprise some folks in that division if Cam Newton stays healthy and if Atlanta's defense rebounds a little bit and avoids some injuries. I think that those two teams can challenge the Saints, but I do agree with you on the New Orleans Saints in that division. And good call on Michael Thomas. I agree with you 100%. I think he is the best receiver in the league now, but nobody gives him the credit for it that he deserves. The NFC West, I have a feeling we're in agreement here too.
I would say it's the LA Rams still.
Yep, I agree with you there. They got Todd Gurley's situation. That could be a little bit dicey because he hasn't really been healthy much. Jared Goff, obviously, he's shown improvement. But people are down on him. But I like Goff, though. And then their defense led by the great Aaron Donald, who I think is a shoo-in for Defensive Player of the Year almost every year. You agree with Aaron Donald about how I feel about him?
Absolutely. I think, again, that defense is still very good. Obviously, they added some good veteran piece in Clay Matthews over there, so don't forget about that. And, but obviously Wade Phillips, I think, is one of the best defensive coordinators in the history of the NFL. Obviously Sean McVay, he's an offensive mastermind. And I think, Todd Gurley, obviously he's a question mark, but if Todd Gurley can be, at least 75% of what he was, last year, or the year before, the first year under Sean McVay, I think they're going to be a special team to watch again.
Yes, I agree with you about the Rams. How about your wild cards out in the NFC?
Wild cards, this is another tough one. I think it's going to be, I could see a 5 or 6 team race for there. I mean, I can see Minnesota getting in. I can see the Bears getting in. I can see the Seahawks getting in. And obviously you have the Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers. Those are kind of, obviously the Cowboys as well. So I think it's going to be, that's a tough call. I can't really give you 2 teams. I mean, if top of my head, I still would say Dallas will be one and Minnesota. But then you got Atlanta. I still don't want to rule out Atlanta. I mean, it's good. The NFC is going to be a very, very interesting picture this year.
Absolutely. The NFC is the better league of the two, in my opinion, in terms of good teams and good call on the 2 wild card teams, because I think both of those teams can win their respective divisions. But at the same time, if they don't win their divisions, they'll certainly be in play for the wild cards. Give me your Super Bowl prediction.
I will go. Just because I'm going to go with New England over Green Bay for the Super Bowl. That's kind of my pick right now. I just think that the Patriots are still a very special team, and I think they're going to continue to prove people wrong. And I think in a tight Super Bowl, it'll be New England over Green Bay.
Interesting. I am not really sold on the Packers being a Super Bowl contender. To me, it's all about Rodgers staying healthy and that defense showing marked improvement from what it's been in the past. But the Patriots obviously will still be in the forefront of the conversation. Now we're going to do a little true-false game. I'm going to throw 20 statements at you, and you tell me true or false, and I'll give you my answer, true or false, and you explain why you feel the way you do. First one, Rob Gronkowski comes out of retirement.
False.
I agree with you. I think it's false, too, but that's just a rumor I've heard in Boston sports and stuff.
Well, after that motivational speaking engagement that he had, I think it was pretty evident that he does not want to come back.
I agree with you 100%. I do not think Rob Gronkowski comes out of retirement. I have that as a false. Sam Darnold will be this year's breakout quarterback.
True.
That is going to make somebody in New York so happy. Actually, a lot of people in New York very happy, but I'm going to say false because I have another guy in mind. Not that I think Sam Darnold will improve. I just don't think he'll be the guy like Mahomes was the guy last year. That's what I mean by that. And I can see why people feel that way about Darnold because of the additions of Le'Veon Bell and some other pieces around him to make Darnold better, improved offensive line.
I think it's more or less like, I think the biggest addition for the Jets, obviously, is the coach. I think Adam Gase is going to really take Darnold to the next level. I think, I have the Jets as possibly a sleeper wildcard team, but, just because I think, just because of Sam Darnold, and obviously and I think they can surprise some people on defense, so, but we'll see. But that's why I have it as a true.
Okay. I mean, I won't be surprised if Darnold is the breakout star quarterback, but I just don't think that he'll make the biggest leap. That's why I have it as a false. I think I know where you're going with this, and I think we'll agree. The Cleveland Browns will regret hiring Freddie Kitchens.
That'll be true.
Yep, I'm with you there. I think that they could have gotten somebody better like a Mike McCarthy or maybe even Adam Gase if they offered the job to him before he ended up going to New York. And I have a feeling that if it goes potentially super, super bad, he could be the next Ben McAdoo, and Odell Beckham Jr. will be labeled as a coach killer. What is your take on Freddie Kitchens?
Well, I think, you kind of got that right. And I just don't like, again, Freddie Kitchens. I'm not a huge fan of that. They have good players on defense there in Cleveland, but I don't like the Steve Wilkes hire as a coordinator, obviously, just because, again, he was not a good coach in Arizona, and it's just to me, I think Cleveland, you hear all these stories that that Ken Zampese, was I think the quarterback coach last year. when Greg Williams took over on the interim basis. He's the one that really did all the coaching. It wasn't really Freddie Kitchens calling the plays. So I just think that if I was Cleveland, again, I agree with you. I think they should have went with a Mike McCarthy or a much better offensive mind than Freddie Kitchens, or maybe hire a good defensive coach and hire a good offensive staff. I kind of like the Todd Monken hires the offensive coordinator. If you hired him to be the play caller and hired a good defensive-minded head coach, I think that would have been a great recipe for success. But again, look, you do have a character like Odell Beckham Jr., who I think can definitely be a coach killer for sure.
Yeah, he will definitely have that reputation if Kitchens loses his job. I think that the Browns will be a good football team, but I just don't love their head coach, so I'm agreeing with you there and saying true. The Pittsburgh Steelers will not miss Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell.
I'm going to say false. I think, I know Big Ben's causing a lot of drama there, but they're going to miss him. There's no question that they are a much better football team when those two players are on the field and being very effective. And Antonio Brown, I think, is again, look, he's still, despite his character and despite being a baby that he is sometimes, I think he's still one of the best receivers in the game. And without a doubt, Big Ben's going to miss him.
This was a tough one for me. I was leaning true for a while, but James Conner and Juju Smith-Schuster are good football players. They are drop-offs from Bell and Antonio Brown, but it's not a significant drop-off. So I'm going to say false there. I think that Smith-Schuster and Conner will have big years for the Steelers, although Bell and Brown are better players. The Indianapolis Colts will trade for another quarterback to be on their roster.
This is kind of a tough one, but, can't really be wrong here. I'll say true for that one.
I agree with you. I think that's going to be a true, too. I don't know who that's going to be, whether that could be Ryan Fitzpatrick from Miami, if they feel comfortable with going with Josh Rosen, Teddy Bridgewater of the Saints, because they have some quarterback depth there. They really like Taysom Hill a lot, so I could see it being Teddy Bridgewater. I can see it being Blake Bortles of the Rams. I could see it being Tyrod Taylor of the Chargers. There's a lot of guys I can think of on top of my head. And a long shot one is Andy Dalton of the Bengals, if they want to try out Ryan Finley and try to tank the season. But I don't think it'll be Dalton, but I think that's a long shot possibility. I could see it being one of the first guys I mentioned, like a Bridgewater or a Tyrod Taylor type of player for the Colts.
I was actually gonna agree with you. I think Teddy Bridgewater would be a perfect quarterback for them to trade for. He's definitely someone that's a leader, and look, I think obviously you hit the nail right on the head. They like Taysom Hill over there in New Orleans, so why not go try to trade why not give Bridgewater a chance to maybe go there and to Indianapolis? And I think they can be, like I said, Indianapolis can be right back to being part of that conversation if they can get Teddy Bridgewater in there.
Absolutely. And they don't have to necessarily trade for somebody that's better than Jacoby Brissett, but maybe they do if Brissett struggles. And I think there's a chance he struggles, but I could see them trading for somebody that's worse than Brissett, but as like a backup type of quarterback, because the second stringer to Brissett right now, I can't even tell you who it is. Oh, wait, it's Chad Kelly. And I don't know if they love Chad Kelly. I think you're going to say false on this one because you're high on this team. Nick Foles will be a free agent bust.
I'm going to say false. I just think that, I think I like Jacksonville. Like I said, I think he has this quarterback coach from the Eagles to be his play caller there, and John DeFilippo. So I think, again, I don't necessarily like the receiving corps in Jacksonville, but I think they could get the job done. I think Nick Foles can definitely ball, and I think he'll definitely be a pretty good quarterback this year. Will he be a bust? I don't think so. I think he's going to be great for Jacksonville. I think Doug Marone's a good coach, but again, that's what I think for today.
I'm going to say true, and that's just nothing against Nick Foles. I like him, but he doesn't have, to me, the receivers that he had in Philadelphia and the security blanket tight end like Zach Ertz. So I'm going to say that's true, but it won't be all his fault. And I don't have the Jaguars as necessarily a great team, although I think they can be great, though, because of their defense. Speaking of defenses, I think you're going to say false on this one. The Chiefs' defense will be improved.
I would say false as well, but I don't think they're going to regress. I think they're just going to probably be very static this year. Remember, they did trade Dee Ford, but they did get Frank Clark. They did get Tony Badger, Teron Matthew in there. They have a new scheme coming up, but still, I think it's still a work in progress. So that's why I'm not going to say they're going to be totally improved.
I'm with you there. I'm going to say false for the same reasons. New defensive coordinator, some new players, and it could take time for them to really gel on that unit. Mahomes and that offense will carry them. Melvin Gordon is this year's Le'Veon Bell. What do I mean by that? Melvin Gordon misses the season. True or false?
I'm going to say false. I think eventually they come together. I think it seems like the language there is a little bit better than it was for Le'Veon Bell. I mean, it's just I'm not saying I'm right in this, but I'm going to say false for now. I think he probably comes back week 4, week 5, maybe somewhere down there. So that's kind of my prediction.
I agree with you. I'm going to say false as well, and I think he'll be back by mid-season, especially if the Chargers are sitting at like 4-4 and the Chiefs are at like 6-2 or something like that, and the running back duo of Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson don't get the job done. I could see a world like that. Carson Wentz plays all 16 games. True or false?
I'm going to say false, and I'll say he sits out week 17.
I'm going to say false, and I'm going to say that maybe he gets hurt and Josh McCown plays a game. I wouldn't be surprised if he sat week 17 if they had a playoff spot wrapped up. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, they're going to have the playoffs wrapped up by maybe week 15, week 16, and then I think they'll sit him out week 17 and go with McCown or whoever, probably Nate Sudfeld.
I'm going to say false because he's hurt almost every year pretty much, and I think he misses a game or two because of injury. All right, Dwayne Haskins starts more games than Daniel Jones. True or false?
This is going to be true. I think Haskins will take over in week 4, week 5 for Case Keenum. Daniel Jones, I mean, look, unless Eli gets hurt or maybe they get him in week 7, week 16, week 17, so that's where I see that going this year.
I think Haskins is in before Jones because I think that the Redskins are going to be a team that gets off to a slow start, and I could see a world where they're like 1-3. And Case Keenum is somebody that I don't love the match with Washington, and so I could see Haskins coming in right away. I won't be surprised if Jones is in there by like week 10, week 11 if the Giants are out of it, but I think that Haskins is in there before Daniel Jones. The rebuilding... go ahead.
I mean, I prefer Case Keenum over Eli Manning as my quarterback for sure.
I would too, but if he performed like the 2017 Case Keenum from Minnesota, which I don't see being the case, if he's not that quarterback, then he's equally or even worse than Eli Manning, in my opinion. The rebuilding since 1957 Detroit Lions won't have a losing season.
I'm going to say that's true. I mean, I like Matt Patricia as the coach. I think, but I just think there's so many variables there in Detroit. I mean, it's like who's on that team right now besides Matthew Stafford and you got Snacks Harrison on defense. But other than that, look, I just don't know who's on that team anymore. I think they're probably 2-3 years away from being a playoff team again. But I just don't see it for Detroit.
I think you meant to say false there because I said won't have a losing season, but that's okay. I agree with you. I think they will have a losing season too. I just think that division's loaded, and I'm not a big Matt Patricia fan. Mitch Trubisky improves on last season. True or false?
That's another good question, but I'm just gonna say true. I think he still continues to develop, but I just think you know I just think the two teams are more improved out there, the Vikings and the Packers. But again, I still think Mitch Trubisky improves.
I'm going to say true as well. I'm higher on the Bears than you are. He has good weapons around him. He's lucky that his defense is solid. He has a great head coach in Matt Nagy. If it wasn't for a missed kick, maybe they go on a deep playoff run. So I'm going to say that Mitch Trubisky improves on last season. Matt Ryan will finish in the top 5 in passing yards. True or false?
I'm going to say true. I mean, this offense is so good, and I think Matt Ryan could be another dark horse for MVP in my opinion. That's what I think of that offense with Dirk Cutter back calling the plays. I think, like I said, look, I'm really high on Matt Ryan. I'm really high on the Falcons offense. I think you have the weapons that he has there, Devonta Freeman. You have obviously Julio Jones. I think is the best receiver and one of the best receivers in the game. And then you have Mohamed Sanu and then Calvin Ridley there as well. So I'm really high in the Falcons offense.
I am too, and I believe that will be true. This obviously got a little easier for me with the Andrew Luck retirement, so I am going to say that Matt Ryan finishes in the top 5 in passing yards. True or false? Jameis Winston will get benched at some point during the season.
I'm going to say true. I mean, I just think I don't think Tampa's a good team. I don't think they have an identity over there. I like the Bruce Arians hire, but again, Bruce Arians is probably still a year-to-year coach. Maybe he's eventually going to hand the duties over back to Todd Bowles to be the coach there. But that's what I think about Jameis Winston. I just don't see the way he gets out of this funk.
Yeah, I'm with you there too. I think that's true as well, but I don't feel good about it because I'm a fan of Bruce Arians. But I think Bruce Arians wants his own people there, so that's why I have a feeling that's going to be true, and they'll be in play for a quarterback in the 2020 draft. The Seattle Seahawks will have a losing record, true or false?
I'm going to say false. I think they have a winning record, but barely miss the playoffs.
I'm with you there. I think they're 8-8 or better. I don't know yet where I'm going to fall with them on my predictions, but I don't see them having a losing record. I'm a big Russell Wilson fan, but their defense is just so bad that they feel like an 8-8 team to me. And like I said, Wilson is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, and I feel so bad if I pick them to have a losing season or finish in last place in that division. But I'm going to say false as well.
I wouldn't say their defense is bad. I mean, you have Ziggy Ansah there. You have Bobby Wagner. So, look, I think there's a lot of young players on that defense. So, I think Pete Carroll's going to get the defense to really overachieve in Seattle.
I could see a world where that defense overachieves. I still like Bobby Wagner. I think Bobby Wagner's really good. And I forgot about the Ziggy Ansah addition. He should help them on that pass rush, replacing Frank Clark. Todd Gurley misses multiple games. True or false?
I'm going to say true. I think there probably will be games where just they sit him out as a healthy scratch, just because to get him mentally ready for the playoffs. So I just think that they're going to be smart with him, and if they have to sit him a few games, they'll sit him, and that's where I see it going with Todd Gurley.
I agree with you. I think it's either going to be because they have the division wrapped up and they just want to give him some rest, or he suffers an injury at some point in the season. 5 or more coaches get fired after the season or during the season, true or false, like combined during and after the season.
I'm going to say true. I think we'll see another big firing squad of head coaches for next year. There's a lot of them on the hot seat. I think I could see there's a lot of coaches I can probably name right now. I think Ron Rivera is on the hot seat. I think you could see Mike Tomlin sort of being on the hot seat in Pittsburgh. Pat Shermer with the Giants. I would say Mike Zimmer with the Vikings would be on the hot seat. Bill O'Brien maybe with the Texans could be on the hot seat, and a bunch of others as well. I mean, it's going to be true for sure.
I'm with you there. I think there's a chance if the Cleveland Browns massively underachieve, which I don't see happening, that Freddie Kitchens could be one and done. I could see a world where that happens. If the Steelers underachieve, I could see it being Tomlin. You forgot about a couple more NFC East coaches, Jason Garrett. If they don't go to the Super Bowl, I could see Jason Garrett being fired.
I think Jason Garrett is probably done either way. I think I just don't see a scenario where, look, I know Jerry Jones probably loves Jason Garrett, but, I think they have a very good head coach in the waiting there, and Chris Richard, who I think will definitely take Dallas to the next level, because I don't think Garrett can do that.
Yes, Chris Richard is the name that my Cowboy fan friends have been screaming at me, is that who they want as their next head football coach, although the media is already penciling in Lincoln Riley as the 2020 Dallas Cowboys head coach. But I don't see that happening. I think Richard is more likely to get that job as well. Pete Carroll in Seattle, if they do have a losing record, I could see a world where he's fired. Another coach on the hot seat, too, in my opinion, is Kyle Shanahan. If Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy and they still don't make the playoffs, I could see a world where he's fired. Jay Gruden out in Washington. If the Eagles underachieve, maybe Doug Peterson, because that's a dysfunctional front office there in Philadelphia. So all 4 NFC East coaches to me are on the hot seat, but none hotter than Jason Garrett in Dallas in my mind, even more so than Shermer and Gruden, because of the idea of Richard taking over there, and they're just demanding a lot in Dallas, So I could totally see 5 or more getting fired during or after the season. Multiple quarterbacks retire after the season, true or false?
I'm going to say true. I don't know who that's going to be necessarily. Maybe Eli retires after the year. So I think that's a possibility. You've sort of had luck already, so that guy would maybe that classified that as one. I'm going to say true.
If you count luck, then that would be a true, but I'm going to say, I wrote after season, so I'm going to say false. And I'm going to say maybe one retires, whether that's Eli Manning or Tom Brady, or maybe somebody surprises us like Ben Roethlisberger or Drew Brees or Phillip Rivers or somebody like that. Multiple Sunday night football games get flexed out, true or false?
I think it always happens, so I'm going to say true. I just think maybe there's later in the year where there's a lot of, battles to be had where a game gets flexed into Sunday night and one gets flexed out to like a 4:25 or a 1 o'clock game.
I agree with you. That happens every single year, and I think that'll be the case again this year. I think that NBC is overrated teams like Green Bay and San Francisco and teams like that I am not on high on, and Seattle, as others are, so I can see those games being flexed out, and then teams I think are... and obviously the Colts, too, without Andrew Luck. Of course you'll see a lot of games flexed out on Sunday Night Football, especially all the ones that involve Indy later in the year, because I think they're going to be out of it, unless if that division is as bad as some people think. And last one for you, the Super Bowl halftime show performer will be a country singer, true or false?
Well, I think Fox has a Super Bowl this year, so I'm going to say true, just because Fox has it, and they might, I think they'll probably try to go low-key.
I agree with you. I think it's true as well, and they won't make the announcement until Thanksgiving, as they do each and every year. I think candidates include Luke Bryant, who performed the national anthem a few years ago and performed at halftime during a Cowboys Thanksgiving home game a few years ago. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of it being the Zac Brown Band, who are a great band and deserve more love within the universe. Maybe Jason Aldean. Maybe it's a mix of people. Taylor Swift, for me, does not count because she's currently a pop singer, but she has sang country in the past, and I saw her in concert a while ago, and she did perform some of her country hits, so I wouldn't count Taylor Swift as a country singer, but I think she's in play as well. One last thing before we go. Your thoughts on the Andrew Luck retirement?
Well, look, I was a little, for 5 minutes I was sort of shocked, but then, obviously it just wasn't surprising. I mean, it wasn't surprising in the sense that, look, the injuries that he suffered and, the backlash from the media that he sort of suffered, Sad to see him go, but look, I'm not surprised at all. And in the one bit, I think give him a lot of credit for doing it what he did. And but it's all about the individual. You gotta be able to read and analyze your body. And I think at the end, you just realize that look, his body can't take these hits anymore. Can't take these injuries, be in and out of rehab. And so all the best of obviously it's to Andrew Luck, and it was just not shocking at all.
I was very surprised when I found out, and I needed like a half hour to process it because I am one of Andrew Luck's biggest fans and supporters. So I was very disappointed with the news, but at the same time I understand it's his life, it's his decision, and we'll see if he did the right thing or not. I think ultimately he did because of what you said, because he's just been dealing with all these injuries, and he never might be the same again. And that's just amazing how last year he had his comeback season, led the Colts to the division round, although they lost to the Chiefs. I really had high hopes for the Colts this year, and that's why I was very disappointed at first, because I had placed wagers on them to win the Super Bowl and for Andrew Luck to win the MVP. But luckily for me, I got my refund, so that's good. All right, it was good to have you on, Steven, and maybe I'll have you on before the hockey season starts so we can do our predictions for hockey.
All right, thank you, Madison. Thank you for having me.